Welcome to another episode of Exceptional TV with me, your host, Alex Granger. Today, I'm very privileged to be speaking to the CEO of Twice Blue, my business partner, Refiloe Manyaka. Let's get to it. Hello, Refiloe. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing, Alex?
Awesome. Welcome to our episode, Exceptional TV. We had tried to do this before, and then obviously technology let us a bit down. But here we are, which is great because now we can. Second takes are always really good. Awesome. So, I think always to kickstart the show and just to get a bit of an insight for the viewers, we always want to know who the guest is. So, how do you express who you are?
It's always very difficult, but for this context, I'll tell you this little story. I was born in Alex.
That's a very cool place. I own that place.
Well, in Alexandra Township 25 years ago. And the interesting...
26, though.
Can
I just say the 26?
No, I want us to remain 25.
You want to stay 25? 25 plus 1. Okay, cool. The interesting thing?
So the interesting thing about this time was the narrative that was told. And it had more of an emphasis around what was taken from us, what we didn't have and how we should get it back. But very little was said about what we inherently have within us, the ability to be great, the ability to do valuable and meaningful work that would enable us to contribute on a global scale. So that really sparked...
Refiloe, stop. Who are you, Refiloe?
I'm getting there.
Yes, because now you're in the business sense.
No, I'm not.
Your mind is so business though.
But I'm not. It's getting there.
All right, you're getting there. Just want to know who Refiloe is. Let's roll, because we're not going to stop.
But I'm telling you the interesting time when I was born, and now I'm getting to where I am.
Okay, cool. We're not cutting though, as you were saying.
And this is going to be fight all the time.
And this is going to be in the episode. This is so cool.
No, it's not.
It will be.
Anyway, all right. So I was trying to say to you that the interesting time that I was born in, the narrative was more about what was taken from us, what we didn't have, but less emphasis was placed on what we inherently had, and that really sparked an interest for me to not only change that narrative for myself, but really just spurred an interest in the behavioral sciences. And I think that translated into my passion and purpose, which is facilitating life-changing moments for people. That also manifested into my studies in industrial psychology, and really a young, energetic and bold millennial, as many would tell.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I just have a very sharp interest for business and a very sharp interest for human behavior.
Tell me about the industrial psychology part. I've always been fascinated by this subject. In fact, the first time I ever came across this term, industrial psychology, in my mind, I thought of industries. It was almost like arbitration and IR and just dealing with people in an industry. But over time, I've learned that it's got to do more with human behavior. And understanding that. Now, you're a millennial, as you've clearly expressed. This is a subject matter that interests you, right?
Yes.
Being a millennial, you're CEO of an awesome company. Really awesome company.
If you say so.
If I can say so myself. But when you look at... Because I've always had issues with boxing people into generations. What are your thoughts around we've got millennials. Do you really think that the description of what millennials are in terms of their behavior and the nuances around that, do you think it really holds sway, or are people just generalizing?
I think, Alex, in a world that is in a constant state of becoming, we need to understand the role that theories and frameworks play. They help us understand and make sense of the world around us. but they themselves are not a solution.
Right.
So, for example, we could use a generational theory and say, you know, to try and understand the different value systems that different generations hold in the workplace. But definitely a millennial in the DRC and a millennial in Europe and a millennial in South Africa are completely different kinds of millennials.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to understand that these are sense-making tools.
Right.
That is only the beginning of discovery, you know, and the beginning, the point of departure, but not necessarily the solution, and therefore not too much emphasis should be placed on the tool itself.
Yeah. So I was reading some research recently by DDI International. So they released these reports on leadership and how leaders should manage. And one of the studies that came out clearly emphasized that currently some of the best leaders are Generation X leaders.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know whether I was biased towards that article because I'm Gen X, but reading it, it just shows that a lot of Generation X people are tech savvy. Also, they strive to be like millennials because they can see the gap, but their biggest strength is their experience.
Yes.
Now, in a world that's rapidly changing, as you've already explained, how do you see millennials managing leadership roles? Because the world is dynamic, and I think you guys bring a very different dynamic.
Yes.
I see it in our own environment,
Yes.
how dynamic the way you see things, your perception around leadership or even just business in general. What do you think millennials contribute to the leadership conversation today?
I think an entrepreneurial mindset is one of the things that jumps out. You know, I think Gen Xers and the generations before would have thought of you know, entrepreneurship as rather a state of being or becoming an entrepreneur, but for us entrepreneurship is more around the mindset, you know, and really the most effective means to make an idea come alive. And I think we really bring that boldness, that sharpness to our leadership, to the leadership conversation as a whole. So we don't think as entrepreneurship as, you know, start a business, then see it towards it, but we see it as a means to an end, or a means towards a bigger idea. And we not only want to have impact locally, but when we think about our ideas, we think about them on a global scale. Which I think is the difference there.
It is different. So I mean, I'm just thinking there around creativity, innovation. I mean, you guys seem to have really no limitations or restrictions in terms of how you think. I mean, like sometimes we've had conversations where I'm like, no, but it can't. Like, because I'm very traditional. And even my mindset often is very, they call it this incremental mindset, where I see things in linear format. Whereas millennials often look at things very exponentially. So it's very different. But that's just from a leadership point of view. And still speaking on that, like, how do you think millennials therefore should be leading people who are traditionalists, Gen X, baby boomers, and even the new Gen Cs or Gen Zs as they call them, or the next generation? Do you think millennials have the strength of character to manage that? Absolutely, I think we do. But I really want to go back a little bit here, and I think, you know, when we subscribe to things like the generational theory, it becomes quite easy to box people in terms of the way. Well, actually, it's more or less around what time period were you born. You know, but that's actually not true. There's more to a person. There's the background, you know, there's the experience of the person, there's a person's value system, there's an upbringing, there's a whole lot of upbringing. There's a whole lot of factors. So I think in leading a multi-generational workforce, one really needs to go back to, I think, the essence, or, you know, the simple principles of, you know what? It's empathy. It's having that compassion for people. It is also having good intentions for people, and I think if those three are there, Alex, really, you can manage anyone. And it's so true. I mean, I think you're using words that most corporate companies will never use. You know, we talk about return on investment. We talk on weighted average capital cost, you know, return on funds employed, net profit, margin.
Oh, my goodness.
Those crazy things. In fact, a lot of business leaders, as we know, especially the traditional ones, measure business success based on what the balance sheet is doing. But you've spoken about empathy, you've spoken about compassion, and these seem to me, over the years, to be more than the soft skills that people talk about. These are hard skills.
Yes, definitely.
You know, to have empathy is not an easy thing to have, because like we want to just drive results. And I think this brings me to the question of diversity, because there's a big element of diversity in this managing multi-generational gaps. What are your views on the element of diversity in this pool of generational gaps?
Yes. You know, I think it was Stanley Bongwe in his book, 100 Lessons in Diversity.
Right.
And I think he coined the phrase, he who generalizes, generally, no, let me get it right. What? It's he who generalizes, generally lies.
Yay, yes.
Which is
almost like it's click stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, and based on that, you know, we could really generalize, or we could really get to the root cause of performance deficiencies. We could really invest our time and energy in getting to know our people and what they want, and not over generalizing them and, you know, putting them under these terms that we so easily come up with. So in leading, I think, you know, one has to have that sort of mindset, you know, that, as I said, the frameworks and theories that are there to help us just make sense of the world. But in a constantly changing world, what we know to be true today might not be true tomorrow. So we've got to approach leadership and diversity with those eyes, with that sort of openness, to say that what I think I know, I might not necessarily know, or it might not be true tomorrow.
So the other narrative in the whole conversation, so you have generational forces, a mix of them, then you've got diversity, and the final element is collaboration. And I know this is one of the key strengths of most millennials, is you guys understand collaboration. Like for me, like I worked in an environment where it was kind of like, okay, I've been appointed sales manager, everything is me. I run this department, my rules go. If there's a problem, I bring the solution. But millennials have this collaborative approach. And in fact, with the whole world being digitized and digitalization, it's also very much a collaborative. We talk about the shared economy.
Sure.
Your views on collaboration in the workplace?
I think, you know, it's always funny to note collaboration, and I go back to, you know, our working relationship and the fact that we're from different generations, and the rest of the team is also different generations. And I look at that, and, you know, in a normal corporate environment, gone are the days where you had to have 15 years experience for you to be good at anything, you know. And I think the guy who's spent 15 years building the connections, building the working capital, really is mad at the millennial, because this person comes into the workplace and literally is well connected, just like that, is effective and can get things done. And I think that's where the shift comes in, is that millennials, and I'll speak about millennials because I am one, is that we really don't. We want to live a life by design, Alex. And in saying that,
you guys don't stick to rules. You guys just break the rules. That's what you guys do.
But we want to live a life by design. And also there's a heightened self-awareness of where our strengths lie. So therefore, it's easy for us to collaborate because we know what we're bringing into the collaboration. So, for example, I know that I'm a strategist, for example, and I'm not very good at executing. What I will do is I will foster relationships with people that are doers, that are good at execution, and therefore get the thing done. And again, I think this is driven by our desire to not only make an impact here, but to scale our dreams and our ideas on a global scale.
Interesting. So one of the things I speak about is the story of Sullenberger. So the story of Sullenberger is the pilot who landed that A3, I think it's the A320 in the Hudson River in New York. Amazing story. I mean, you can imagine being a pilot taking off at an airport and then both your engines fail because these geese have flown in and literally stuffed it up. And realizing that they've got no thrust. The planes can't move. Literally, they're now gliding. The closest airport is too far to actually take this plane, and the only airport is the Hudson River. And that's never happened ever in the history of aviation where you can land safely. And I really like what Sullenberger says. He says, at the end, he says, I realized that over the years, what I was doing, I was making small deposits of experience and training and development into this bank so that one day I could make a very large withdrawal.
Oh, wow.
And I found that very interesting, especially in your conversation around what millennials bring to the conversation. But equally so is that what you bring is the ability to manage this diverse group of people who have this type of Sullenberger experience. Because I can tell you now, if you don't have that experience, there was no way. For a young pilot who's got, let's say, 200 hours of flying, compared to 35,000 hours of flying, to be able to say, I can navigate this thing safely. No one was injured. There was no scratch. Landing safely, and he was the last man to leave that flight.
Wow.
And I thought that was quite profound because I had to just plug in generational /traditional.
Very interesting, Alex, that you say that. And I think the difference now is that, you know, if Sullenberger can teach us what he's learned incrementally over time, there's an abundance of information now. So when it took Sullenberger 20 years to build this huge bank where he could withdraw from, we no longer have to spend as much time. That's the beauty about where we are.
You can leverage that.
We can leverage that, right? And I think we are getting quite good at learning the smaller stuff quickly. You know, so the things that Sullenberger probably had to, you know, just learn by experience, we already know as theory or the foundation of the experience that we're about to build on. So that's the beauty in the time that we live in.
Anyway, we're on set with Refiloe Manyaka, CEO of Twice Blue, international speaker, and all-round amazing human being. My business partners, I'm a bit biased, so sorry for you guys if you don't like what I'm saying. So we're going to close off our episode, and as you know, you've watched many of our episodes on Exceptional TV. We always ask our guests, what are some of the things you'd like to just share as words of advice, call to action, just 3 things, 3 ideas on the top of your mind, specifically around what we've been discussing. What would you like to share?
I think one would be don't overgeneralize, and I think my three insights or tips would be more to the leaders leading multi-generational workforces. Is to say don't overgeneralize, understand the sense-making tools and frameworks that are there, but not focusing on the tools itself, but the subjects of the tools, and I think that's the basis of innovation and an innovative approach towards managing and leading people.
Actually, you know, generalizing makes it's just too much of assumptions. You can imagine if you have a millennial that you're leading and then you look at them, you're a millennial, therefore, which means you like this, you like that. This is how I must manage you. I want
flexible working hours.
And you want to be on Snapchat, Snapchat, that thing.
Oh my word.
You want to be on that regularly throughout the day. I even saw a video where they say Facebook is for old people.
Oh my word.
Millennials don't go into Facebook anymore. They're into Snapchat. What was it? Instagram, Vine, and Pinterest, and Twitter. Those are the main that millennials. And again, that's generalization, right?
Yes, so there's a little bit of a danger, and I think every time we discover a new framework or a theory, we really get excited and we think we already understand what's going on, but we don't. It's only a point of departure that helps us understand the people that we lead.
Okay, so one, don't generalize.
Don't generalize. Two, I think this is more for the HR people.
Right.
You know what? I think impact triumphs over tenure.
Right.
And I think in the past, the drive has been, how do we keep and engage millennials? My question is, what if we don't need to be kept?
Yes.
By your employee engagement strategies.
Exactly.
So I think the focus needs to rather be on in the time that we're there, because as a millennial, I'm very bold about my dreams, my passions, and sometimes it might mean that where I currently am is only a stepping stone to where I want to go. And I am very bold to let you know that as my employer. So I think the focus should rather be in building an environment that allows me to have the greatest impact in the time that I'm there, versus trying to infinitely keep me engaged, which is not going to happen.
And that's a strategy most most organizations now, they have employee satisfaction indexes, employee engagement strategies. And in some countries, millennials are saying, actually, I don't even want to work for 5 days. Can I just work for 3 days for you? Because I'd rather do other things the rest of the week with other companies.
Yes, I don't want to come to work so my manager can see that I am working.
Yeah, I can work wherever I am.
I can work wherever I am, yes, but obviously there's certain responsibilities that go with that.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it's not that millennials just want without giving. We do want to contribute. We do want to do meaningful work. We do want work that is more aligned to a higher purpose, or the life that we want to live by design.
Okay, so finally, the third point.
So the third point is, I think there needs to be a de-emphasis on conference slogans.
De-emphasis on?
Conference slogans.
Conference slogans. Oh,
yes.
That's an interesting one.
And I'm talking from experience here. Nothing is as frustrating as, a leader who would go to a conference, come back inspired and install all of these changes without truly understanding where the organization is and what the organization actually needs.
Okay, gotcha.
So that becomes very frustrating. Especially now when everything is changing, we throw around terms like digital transformation, like e-learning and all of that. And,
so much.
You could imagine how frustrating it is if your leader comes back and basically puts everything that was on PDF online, and then, hey, we digitally transformed. We've got a digital
right-click copy store. Yeah.
So I think the importance is to really focus on what the organization needs, and maybe meet the system where it is, in terms of the solutions, and that I think would enable us as a country, as a continent, to participate on a global scale in a very, very interesting time.
It's interesting. A few episodes ago, Robin Christie spoke exactly about what you're saying around systems and understanding what drives your business. And she actually said, sometimes you just have to keep things simple.
Yes.
We overcomplicate things where simplicity can actually rule for the day.
Yes.
So I think this is some of the things you've shared with us today. Well, it's really been great having you on set again, and I hope to have you back. And maybe in the future we'll talk about leadership, because I really think we haven't even touched that. I'm still interested in exploring a bit your mind around leadership. So thank you very much for gracing us.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
Awesome. Well, that's it, guys. Refiloe Manyaka was my guest today. You know what you need to do the things that need to be done. Subscribe to our channel. Visit our website, exceptionaltv.co.za. And if you want to get in touch, all the platforms. Until next time, I'm out.